When I worked at Vietnam television, we report mostly with the achievements, with the progress that Vietnam was done. And we believe that that is a part of the socialism building. That is building the country after the war. At that time, a lot of Vietnamese people left Vietnam on boat. Our function as a journalist, we should do a report to prevent people from leaving the country. Like I never asked them the difficulties, their life. I guess that now, when you look back, we miss out maybe half of the story about their life, their feeling, how they live in the country.
Hang Dinh is a journalist whose career started in a peculiar world, the 1980s socialist Vietnam. But one day, almost by chance, she discovered another world with other ways to practice journalism. And when she came back home, she was determined to implement what she had just learned in the Vietnamese media. My name is Camille Diao, and I am also a journalist. For the past few months, I got to talk with reporters, podcasters, news anchors, bloggers, and other actors of the media industry around the world. I listened to them at length. They told me about their backgrounds, their inspirations, their battles. I asked them a lot of questions, and one thing leading to another, between these men and women from all over the world, I started to see the connections, shared beliefs, ideas, courage, passion. I spoke to 10 different people. They come from Vietnam, Egypt, Myanmar, and Lebanon, amongst other places. In this podcast series, I want you to hear their voices. You're listening to Correspondances, the podcast of the newsmakers, episode 3, Hang Dinh.
Well, over the past few days, we've been monitoring social media.
الآن بالنسبة لي الديمقراطية.
Он рассказывает о деталях. Но мы видим, что высокая явка.
Correspondance, the podcast of the newsmakers. When I first contacted Hang Dinh, I was told in advance, you are going to speak to a famous journalist. She was one of the faces of VTV, the national Vietnamese television, for about 15 years. But it's been more than 15 years now that Hang Dinh has left the TV studios to dedicate herself to teaching. Today, she is a professor at the University in Hanoi, and she also teaches as a volunteer at the Media Training Center of the Vietnamese Journalists Association. It took her several weeks to find a slot for this interview, but I don't blame her. She told me how her daughter often tells her, "Mom, you're working too much. You don't have any time for yourself." Hang Dinh, just as many journalists that you will listen to in this series, lives for her vocation. She puts all of her time, all of her energy in it. But let's rewind a little. 1965. When the United States Army starts bombing Vietnam, little Hang Dinh and her family are displaced from Hanoi to the countryside. The 6 children in the family do not always have enough to eat. For years, life is made up of emergency sirens, bombings, evacuations. "1975. War is over. Communist North Vietnam succeeds in attacking the capitalist South. The country is reunited and becomes the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. Hang Dinh has just finished high school, returns to Hanoi, and starts university.
Growing up during the war, when we saw the news and also the radio, listen to the radio, to become a journalist was something that I often admire. And when we finished high school, we came back to Hanoi and went to university. At that time in Vietnam, the journalism was not a sort of like the profession or career. It was a school for you to do that. So I went to do the Russian language and Russian literature. And with that sort of like skill and knowledge about Russian language, I was able to get into Vietnam television because at that time in the early 1980s, the Vietnam television, they received the feed from Soviet Union Russian television.
Участники демонстрации потребовали прекратить строительство ядерных подлодок и призвали рабочих судоверфи присоединиться к протесту.
At that time, Soviet Union television was the first international TV feed went to Vietnam. So they recruited me to be like edit the news from Soviet Union television channels to broadcast for Vietnamese. And I must say that it was a revolution in the way that we made a television program. And I just try to learn from what the Soviet Union journalists did. In the early 1980s, I must say that at that time, the Vietnamese media was not as developed as now. After the war finished in 1975, in the north of Vietnam, we sort of started understanding that there was some kind of box that you could hear, you could see the image. Before that, we didn't know. The television only started. So at that time, there's only one channel. We broadcast only 4 or 5 hours per day. Everything is from the official media newspaper. When I worked at Vietnam television, we report on the achievements in the different area like politics, economics, technology. So what we did is that we always covered mostly with the achievements, with the progress that Vietnam was done. So we're talking about, say, like the farmers, how good they was with these crops, or the company, how good they was this year compared with the last year. It's sort of like no one told us that you shouldn't do this. And we believe that that is a part of the socialism building. That is building the country after the war.
Brothers, Don't you see how many innocent people are being killed?
Sir, that witch is demoralizing our men. A year ago, she'd have been shot for this, but now the army desperately needs the sympathy of the people.
They buried my husband alive in the very earth that he had farmed. And I was jailed for 3 years with no proof of guilt. Was it a crime to tell my people how to improve their crops? How to learn and work together? Yes, that's why they arrested me. They also jailed my little son.
At that time, a lot of Vietnamese people left Vietnam on boat. They were very poor. There was economic recession in the mid-80s. There was not enough rice. We didn't have even the cloth was not enough. Like every family was given a coupon. Every month, each person had 13 kilos of rice, maybe 200 grams of pork meat, and we follow that. So, again, it was difficult.
La Terre a quelques encablures. Après 40 jours de voyage, Ofokieng et ses 226 compagnons découvrent enfin les côtes de France, et dont ils attendent tout. Ofokieng et sa famille s'embarquent sur un boat people. Coup de chance, après 5 jours et 5 nuits aérés au gré des courants, ils ont été repêchés par un navire de la marine française. À bord, il a fallu s'entasser les uns contre les autres. Dans cet ancien car-ferry, rien n'était prévu pour le confort des passagers. Pourtant, pas un seul instant, Ofokieng n'a regretté ce qu'il avait quitté.
Je laisse tout au Vietnam. La liberté, c'est le plus important dans notre vie.
La liberté, Ofokieng en connaît le prix. Il a passé 6 ans en camp de rééducation et 3 ans en prison. Avant la chute de Saigon, il était professeur de français dans l'armée vietnamienne, ce qui lui a permis de servir d'interprète sur le bateau. Mais aujourd'hui, comme tous ses compagnons, il sait que le voyage est terminé et qu'il va falloir tout recommencer.
So our function, I guess that as a journalist, we should do a report to prevent people from leaving the country, and they should stay in the country. So we need to sort of like show people about how difficult it was for them in the detention camps in Hong Kong, in Thailand, or how dangerous they was on the boat to leave Vietnam to other countries. I never asked them the difficulties, their life in Vietnam. I didn't go any further in how they would have lived in Vietnam. I guess that now, when you look back at that sort of like a story, I guess that we miss out maybe half of the story about their life, their feeling, how they live in the country. So with my career as a TV reporter, in the early 90s, I was presenter of the current affairs program. It was weekly. So as I say that because at the time there was not many TV programs, that's why that our face, when we appear on TV, our face was recognized and remembered. So, whenever we went out, people sort of recognize you that, you was from TV, blah, blah, blah. So you feel really, really good about that. But anyway, as a presenter for the different programs until 1999, so since then, the people from my generation, they could still recognize my face. I was very lucky to get the Australian scholarship from the government offered to Vietnamese students. So I went to Australia in 1994. So I did my master degree in journalism.
Ladies and gentlemen, this information is for family and friends awaiting the arrival of Virgin Blue Flight TJ966 from Brisbane. This aircraft has now landed and guests will shortly be disembarking through gate lounge number 31. For those guests travelling to Brisbane on TJ977, as soon as the security checks and cleaning of your aircraft have been completed, we will get boarding underway shortly as possible. Thank you.
I must say that it was all different for me. What we was taught in Vietnam is that, capitalism is exploitation. So sort of we believe that in socialism, people was equal and people was nice to each other, blah, blah, blah. And then when I really went to Australia and lived there from 94 to 96, I thought that is really nice because it's different. Nobody pay attention on me. You could live on your own, that you don't have to think about what people would think about you. You felt freedom. The way that they wear clothes, a different color, it is a different way of life, In our society, there was not such sort of thing. I felt shocked when I watched TV. And a journalist interviewed the Prime Minister, and he said, Mr. John Howard, what you blah, 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 and sort of like questioning him. The questions, they answer, and they follow the question, and they ask the politicians have to give the answer, the right answer, otherwise they find another way to ask. That is very impressed me. And I was very happy about that because it seemed like I would learn journalism in a proper way. And I must say that I was very interested in the courses. I sort of follow the journalists, Australian journalists, to the field to watch how they report on story. I watch the Australian programs to know how they do it. And also I must say that my lecturers at university, they helped me a lot. That 2 years in Sydney, I learned quite a lot.
Tonight, the Yugoslav standoff continues as another deadline passes. The current account deficit well below market expectations, and mystery surrounds the death of heart doctor Victor Chang. Good evening, I'm Edward Grieve with a special edition of ABC News brought to you as a result of industrial action by some members of the Public Sector Union. The Yugoslavian
other things I learned from when I first went to Australia is that with television, the station compete each other by the current affairs program. That is something that I really wanted to implement for Vietnam television. So I exchanged with my supervisor. I said that I really want to learn that current affairs program And so she sent me to have attachment at the ABC, the public broadcaster, the current affairs program called 7:30 Report. And I really learned everything. I try to take note of the content program, even the different roles of people who work in the team, how it's set up. And I got a lot of helps from them as well. But then the difficulties is that how I can implement it on Vietnam television. So I also talked to my supervisor about that. And she said to me, you better sell your ideas to your boss at Vietnam television. And when it becomes his ideas, he might implement it. So I learned from her. When I went back to Vietnam at television, I told him, and then he liked the ideas. So he will then set up, and then he told someone to do it. And I was very happy. He used my ideas. What I learned in Sydney was passed on and implemented on Vietnam television. I must say that at the moment, compared with when I started at Vietnam television, the Vietnamese journalism now has improved much more in terms of freedom, in terms of journalism styles, in terms of the role of journalism. In the past, we reported on achievements. We thought that is the way it should be. But nowadays, journalists understand what is a journalism. That means that they have to monitor, follow the story to see what is wrongdoing. So more negative thing would be reported in the media. But at the same time, the companies, the enterprises, the business people, they feed journalists with the press releases or only the news that they wanted to broadcast or publish. And if the journalists sort of recognize or find something going wrong with them, they would bribe them or say, okay, give a big envelope. So that is one of the pressure on journalism in Vietnam. Before, all the media organization was subsidized by the government. But in the last 10 years or 15 years now, the media are self-funded. And self-funded in the moment that the internet happening, social media competing, newspaper circulations gone down, the advertisements revenue gone into social media and other channels on the internet. So I must say it was a very difficult time for the Vietnamese journalism at the moment. However, we don't stay there in one spot. We want more, and I think that what I want to see with the Vietnamese journalism is that I want to have discussion. I want the journalists to report on the issue that the public interested in, that is relevant to people's And I guess that journalism should play the role as questioning, giving the critical discussion on the issue, and don't avoid that issue that people really want to know. As a person who went through the war, spent 10 years in the evacuation, and also experienced the hunger, the cold, surely we don't want to create any more conflicts and political tension in Vietnam. So that is the quite difficult thing. In one hand, journalism is more critical, is more fighting. On the other hand, we don't want to make public fight each other, burn the houses, burn the cars, make the chaotics. No, that is something that I really feel that maybe that is a responsibility of journalists. I don't know. I'm confused. When I finished my PhD in 2003 and I went back to Vietnam in 2004, I was thinking that if I keep my job at Vietnam Television, I might become a manager in the newsroom and sort of doing sort of routine work. I thought that maybe if I work as a lecturer at university, then I would be able to pass on my skill, my knowledge, and also my passion about the role of journalism. So that's why sort of overnight I decided that I wanted to work at a journalism school in Hanoi. And I thought that I chose the right job. What I learned from Australia, what I experienced, I think that I really pass on to the students. I'm very happy to see the first generation of my students, they got the job at Vietnam Television again and also at other TV stations. I felt proud when I watched them.
Đại sứ quán Cộng hòa Ireland phối hợp với Sở Ngoại vụ tỉnh Quảng Trị và Giản Renew tổ chức triển lãm ảnh Việt Nam 40 năm của nhiếp ảnh gia người Ireland Ian Sinclair tại Quảng Trị.
I really enjoy this job because it's really sort of like fulfill my personal ambition, how to make the journalism in Vietnam better. And I believe that the better journalism we have, the better media function, the public would be better informed, and that would make a better society. I really believe in that. You try your best. You want to see things, you want to see the result of your efforts, but sometimes it happens very slowly, and you get frustrated. And you get exhausted. There's no time for, to have a rest, no time for the family. But I think that if I went back to 18 or 20 again, I might choose the same path, choose the same job. I would maybe believe in the same way and do the same thing again. I am an enthusiastic person. I'm always believe that if you keep pursuing something, then it will happen. Maybe it's slowly, but it will happen.
resilience. That's the first word that came to my mind after I came off the phone with Hang Dinh. Today, the former journalist who turned professor is also writing textbooks for the use of the next generation. And she dreams of writing a book about her childhood someday. But that will have to wait until after the many battles she still needs to fight. Over the years, Hang Dinh has seen the Vietnamese society open and transform. She has seen the media follow the movement, despite the resistance of the old world and the challenges of the new. Her story is the one of a journalist who was born in a peculiar world, and who, since then, has been fighting every day to build the next one. Correspondances is a podcast series brought to you by CFI, the French media development agency. In the next episode, you will hear the story of a Yemeni fixer turned into a TV producer. Ahmed Baida's life is dedicated to shed light on the Yemeni humanitarian crisis. See you then.